All right, so this was a very good question that I got on the most latest video that I had, which was new guitar build, wood processing, and fitting the truss rod. I'm just gonna move that to a new window so I can actually see my chat at the same time. So yeah, the question I got was from Frankie Chan. If you checked out me looking at community builds, he actually had a couple of them in there. I really recommend checking that out. But yeah, Frankie says, this is one of those things that I need to think about. Do I join a local makerspace, woodwork club, men's shed group for my planned build and subsequent ones, or make do with what I have? Of course, I can do the build with basic hand tools, power tools that I have, with maybe the purchase of a Shinto saw rasp and one decent plane. And buy lots of clamps, but it'll just take a lot more time. Or do I invest in tools that carry me forward, even though I don't know how this guitar building thing will go? I don't want to spend many hundreds of dollars on spindle sander, etc. that will not end up getting used if I move away from the building. If I move away from building. Maybe this is something that you can bring up in a live stream video. Either path to get started on things or suggestions on how based on what I've learned. And it's something that regularly shows up on Reddit. Yeah, it is. I remember like the Luthier Reddit posts, a lot of them that I've actually replied to with. I made a video last year where I went over like where to start with guitar building. But the whole thing with that was, hey! Now I started thinking how to pronounce your name. Iomar? Right? Iomar Guitars? What up? Nice to see you. Just going over a question from Frankie here about how to get started on with guitar building. Basically, yeah. Yeah, so sorry, I had a little moment there. Spaced out. Yeah, last year I made a video of where to start with guitar building, and I've suggested that video to a lot of people who've asked about it. But the whole focus with that video was basically already assuming that you're gonna like get into it and you're just looking at what tools to get for yourself. Now, I had never, at that point at least, I didn't even consider the routes that I've taken when it comes down to things. Because quite honestly, I only started building up my own tools and stuff like that after I left England. Up until that point, I had used what I had and rented time at maker spaces or worked after hours at my school, stuff like that. So thinking about how to best go about it is a very good question. I'd say that if you have the option that if you have a maker space or sort of workshop where you can go and have a couple of hours here and there where it's either you pay monthly or like what I have here is like you pay for the time that you use and you don't have to go there all the time, which is really convenient. I know it's not like that in many other places, but it's really convenient for me because I don't have as many tools as I would like, and there's no way that I can really do routing in an apartment building spare bedroom. So going to the makerspace or hobbyist workshop really helps out in that regard. But if you're just thinking about starting up, maybe building a couple of instruments, but you're not sure how much you're going to be doing it, but you have an interest in it, finding a sort of makerspace or some space where they have tools ready and readily available, and maybe someone who runs the shop and can teach you some tools and tips and tricks, that helps out a good bit. So in that way, you're kind of like dipping your toes into it, so to speak, without having to invest all that much money into it. If it turns out that you build a couple of guitars and you're completely satisfied, then you got a couple of guitars that you're completely satisfied with, and you learned a whole lot. Maybe later on you'll think about pursuing it. But if you really start to make more and more and more guitars and really feel like it's somewhat of a passion for you, then at that point it's probably good to start investing and looking at what kind of tools to start off with. And more so, what can you work with given the space that you have? If you have a garage and you can make noise and you won't get complaints, you can make dust and it won't ruin things like a computer or what have you, then by all means, one of the first things that you should probably get is, well, measuring tools aside, measuring tools are something that you really, really must have. A really good protractor goes a hell of a long way. A meter long steel ruler is also a must. But a good router is something that will get you a long way, and an orbital sander. Those are some things that will take you far. Of course, having rasps and files, saws, the list goes on, but it really depends on what kind of level you're looking at going from. I realize that when it comes down to answering these kind of questions, I keep on going on very convoluted directions.